Hello and welcome to the Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader Beta. The first time we saw this game was the Alpha, and the Alpha was very good. It was a solid foundation from which to build the game on. We saw interesting quests, we saw some cool mechanics that could be expanded upon, we saw some interesting interaction between the different characters. But what we were missing fundamentally from the Alpha was a context, because it jumped us into the second act of the game. It jumped us straight from Season 1 of the show to Season 2. Sure, we have a rough idea what's going on, we know the context of the setting, we know roughly how certain characters should react to each other, but we're missing fundamentally some context, which is what this beta adds. This beta starts from the beginning of the game, and most importantly, character creation, which is what we're going to be looking at today. So let us jump right in and have a look at what's going on with our character. Before we can jump into character creation, we have to have a look at the scenario that we're going to be playing, and that scenario is of course the main story, as it is the only one available. Take up the mantle of a rogue trader, a scion of an ancient dynasty of daring privateers that reign over their trade protectorate and explore the fringes of the known galaxy. Darkness looms over the bloodline of von Valancius as it faces multiple dangers, from a traitor amongst its ranks to the numerous enemies seeking to destroy the most daring and brave agents of humanity. It is up to you to hold the reins of shattered protectorate and forge a new path for the rogue trader dynasty that finds itself in the vortex of wars, intrigues, calamities, and heresy. The stakes rise as you cross the paths of the most powerful adversaries and rivals that chase their own goals in the darkness of the Koronus Expanse. And the second thing that we have to do before we jump into character creation is we have to look at the difficulty. Now, there are two difficulties available here. I'm imagining there's going to be a bunch more presets, and of course you can move all of these around as you feel like to change the values. You know, for instance, if you don't want to see the skill check DC in combat, you could change that, right? It's different for each difficulty level, but essentially there's a bunch of things you can change, but the ones they've set up and balanced for are normal and core. We're going to be playing on core. This should be, in theory, as it's written, the game as written in the tabletop rulebook, and it's gonna be a bit of a challenge. I did a test run on the previous patch of this beta. There has been like a large patch which bug fixed a bunch of things and changed a bunch of things based upon some feedback, but I did a test run and it was at the start fairly easy on core. It was kind of gentle, it was leading you in, and very quickly it became a game of survival. It was very much each fight, if you didn't play it right, you were going to have a character fall down, you were going to have a character near death, and that is something that I quite like. Now, our goal for this series is only to play through the start of the game. We're not going to go any further, and that's just simply because I find that if you go too far in the beta, when you get to it when you're playing the main game, it just doesn't feel right. And given that I've already decided we're going to be playing the main game based on what we played at the Alpha, it just seems like going too much further would just kind of be spoiling ourselves. So, we're only playing that much, but I will say it's about 2.5 hours, 3 hours I think for just the introductory sequence, and it is very cool. So, let's jump into character creation. Now, it has a couple of different presets for us, which are just some things that will roughly work from different types, but we're going to be creating a custom character because that's much more interesting. And my goal for the custom character is to try and create the kind of character I might create if I was going to be playing this for real. So, let's create a custom character. Now, the characters I usually like playing are ones that are able to get the most information out of a situation as possible, right? I like characters who are able to, like, RP-wise, get a ton of lore, right? They're able to get characters to tell them about themselves. They're able to find out secrets that different organizations don't want you to know. And in this case, I think we're gotta be somebody who's not too much on one side or the other. Like, we can't be too, imperial. Anybody who's a little bit off is a heretic. That won't really work for us here, because then we're gonna be missing out on one side of the story. So, let's find somebody who seems that they fit in with that. I don't know. I'm looking at these guys. Who gives me that vibe? Like, this guy, he gives me the vibe that if you were playing as, anyone who is slightly off as a heretic, he would definitely be there. How about we play as this one? This looks like somebody who could be in the high flights of nobility, but also could be, you know, a little bit of a rogue, somebody who doesn't always follow the rules. That seems like the kind of person we're looking for here. Right. Oh, I've skipped a section. Appearance. Let's go with this. Have we got a face that roughly matches? That kind of works a little bit of a sneer. Looks like he'd probably be, yeah, a little bit skinnier, I guess. Skin tone. I mean, this seems rough. Oh God, that's not quite right. That person's got some kidney issues. Yeah, there we go. That seems roughly right. I was looking for paler to kind of match, but that'll do. Hair. Do we have some hair that matches here? I do like that it actually gives you a preview instead of it just being like a 1 to 20. It's kind of useful. Is that right? That looks close enough-ish. I don't know if there's going to be anything that's actually that much closer right now. Yeah, probably not. So let's go with that. That'll do for just now. Hair color, a little bit graying, maybe something like that. Potentially, that works. Okay. Tattoo, we'll just leave that for just now. Implants, we've got that cybernetic eye. Let's see whether we can put that cybernetic eye on. I actually can't see any oh no, we've got like little implants on the top there. Okay. Yes, I can't see anything that matches just now. It is a beta, so they may add in some more of these in the future. That's fine, we'll ignore them for just now then. And voice. I guess we'll go with bold male from the options here.
I'll bring glory to my bloodline.
Okay, yeah, that seems like that'll be fine. Right, homeworld. This is where we start to actually pick our character. This is where we start to go in and see, okay, this is what we're getting. So, first one is Death World. Now, I'm going to read all the lore because I actually don't know all the lore. I used to be quite into Warhammer 40K. I knew lots of different bits, but there is so much more that I only scratched the surface on. So, let's have a look here. Death World. Upon Death Worlds, the plants, beasts, and sometimes even the environment itself takes aggressive and destructive forms, immiscible to human life. While exceptionally difficult to colonize, many Death Worlds possess valuable resources that require an outpost or other human presence upon the planet's surface to harvest. These harsh environments result in some of the hardiest and most resilient populations in the galaxy. Those tested and found wanting die young. So it gets you survival instinct. Once per combat, when wounds of a Death World character drop below 30%, they gain 20% temporary wounds to their maximum wounds. Death World characters also gain 20% bonus to dodge and armor while they have at least one temporary wound from any source. Okay, so they're very difficult to bring down. Interesting. You also get some ability modifiers. So strength, I can kind of work out. That's muscle and physical power. Okay, makes sense. Toughness, that's like your health basically, right? Yeah, health, how easily you can resist toxins. Okay. Agility, dodgy kind of stuff. Maybe for, I'm trying to see whether there's anything to do with weapon handling here. It doesn't seem to be assessing that. It's mostly to do with movement. Okay, so dodge and movement. Intelligence, so how smart you are. So they can recall huge volumes of data. So we want to be quite an intelligent character, right? We want to be a character that is very, very smart because we want to get as much information as possible. And then fellowship. Fellowship measures a character's persuasiveness. Oh, so it's persuade, basically. Okay, so actually this is kind of the exact opposite of what I want in terms of attribute modifiers. I want to be more fellowship and more intelligence rather than anything else. And then what have we got here? The following features will be available for upgrade during level up. Okay, so you can get some extra bonuses when you level up, which are unique to Death World characters. Interesting. Okay, so you're kind of choosing almost a like a collection of, you're choosing like a collection of attributes and then a collection of like features or something like that, right? You're kind of choosing a collection of both and then that's your character, and then I assume Origin is going to add in some more of these, and then you kind of build up a unique character by having your own pool of things that you can get per level up. That's interesting. Okay, well, we'll leave this for just now. Let's have a look at Voidborn. Voidborn are humans birthed in the belly of a void vessel or aboard an ancient orbital satellite. Those who live their lives on void ships become inured to some extent to the reality-altering process of warp travel and to living in low or zero gravity environments. In many cases, their features are drawn, their skin pallid, and they may have minor facial deformities or an oddness of speech, gait, or general appearance that sets them apart from others. Work in progress. Alright, so we're going to skip this, but it also is probably not going to be what we're going for here. We'll go for one that's got some of the stuff more filled out. Are there actually any others that have got stuff filled out? Yeah, sort of. Not really. Okay, so Death World appears to be the only one that's actually filled out. Maybe we'll go with Death World, even if it's not quite what I'm going for here. But still, we'll read through the rest of them. A hive world's population is so dense that frequently great swaths of the surface of the world are covered with gargantuan cities of towering spires that pierce the atmosphere. Hive worlds are vital to the welfare of the Imperium and are the beating heart of its economy and war machine. They produce munitions for the Emperor's armies in vast manufactories, mine valuable materials, and refine fuel for the Imperial fleet. Innumerable regiments of the Astra Militarum are raised from their massive populations as well. Okay, interesting. And then we got a couple of Forge World ones, not all of which have descriptions. Okay, Forge Worlds are the dominion of the Adeptus Mechanicus, given over to the demands of the vast macro industries. Each is blessed with a higher level of technology than the wider Imperium as a whole, and many arcane wonders are commonplace in their labyrinths of ferrocrate and steel. At the direction of the Magi of the Cult Mechanicus, the bulk of a Forge World's population is utilized as a labor force, whilst the few fortunate may be inducted into the ranks of the Adeptus Mechanicus itself. Okay, so smart, but not very good at talking to people if you come out of this one. And that appears to be the same for a few of these. Yeah, that appears to be the same for all of these currently. Okay, Imperial World Feudal. An Imperial world is one of a million planets united by a belief in the immortal god Emperor. Hailing from hyper-technological societies to grimy feudal populations, the inhabitants of countless worlds offer fealty and devotion to the master of humanity and the imperial creed taught by his servants. Most Imperial worlds are ruled by a planetary governor and support a thriving ruling class of some sort, known as its nobility. So this would seem like the kind of thing that we might go with, even though it doesn't give you any intelligence or fellowship here. And then you've got military traditions, which appears to be the exact same, but it gives you different attributes. Okay, so you get perception and ballistic skill instead of strength and weapon skill. So this is probably the ranged version of that. Okay, so as I said, we're going to go with Death World, because it appears to be the only one that's fully fleshed out right now. So we'll work with it. We'll work with it. So maybe our character's not that good at talking to people. Maybe our character's not that good at intelligence. But maybe we can fix that in the Origin. Let's have a look at this. So, Origin. The Astra Militarum Commander. The Astra Militarum, commonly known as the Imperial Guard, is the primary fighting force of the Imperium, and first line of defense from the myriad threats which endanger the existence of humanity in the 41st millennium. You have served as one of the commanders of the Astra Militarum Regiment, commanding the thousands of lives and winning battles in the name of the God Emperor. So you get ballistic skill, perception, athletics, and medicae. All of these seem fairly straightforward. Then we can get these things during level ups. So you can get extra perception, you can get extra medical skill, and you get some talents. I'm just going to hover over them in case anyone is interested. I don't think this one is for us currently. Unless, of course, it's the only one that's done, in which case it's definitely for us. Oh, and that one as well. Okay. Commissar. Commissars of the Officio Prefectus are ruthless officers charged with maintaining the morale, discipline, and fighting spirit of the Astra Militarum Regiment. You used to be one of these servants of the God Emperor, a living symbol of the Imperium's authority, regarded with a mix of fear and awe by their subordinates. So this gets you fellowship, interestingly. Okay. So it gets you let's give them hell. And then what else do we get here? So you get more fellowship, you get coercion. Oh, okay, so fellowship is your persuasiveness and ability to lead, force of personality, while coercion is your ability to manipulate other people through intimidation specifically. Okay, interesting. I wouldn't necessarily have been my assumption on those ones, but that's good to know. Okay. Vagabond. The Imperium survives and prospers in no small part due to the narrowness of its vision, but a rebellious mind and will such as yours could not be so easily constrained. The dark paths of smugglers and renegades that wind behind the facade of Imperial society offer a dangerous refuge for those unwilling to bow to the law, and you used to be one of these dangerous yet resourceful individuals. So it's missing some content. Okay, so this is very much looking like what I might want to do when it comes to it. Like, we get perception there, so your awareness. Wait. It just says measures a character's awareness. That's very funny, because then we have the skill modifier for awareness. Okay, encompasses the subconscious ability to react to things that the conscious mind may not perceive. Although this is an ability and this is a skill, so I'm assuming that's the difference. Perception probably leads into some awareness, but awareness doesn't lead into perception or something like that. And then logic, ability to solve puzzles, solve problems, decipher puzzles, operate cogitators, and deal with other situations involving demonstration and inference. Okay. Then we get some perception and awareness from that one. Ministerium Priest. The Ecclesiarchy, known formally as the Adeptus Ministorum, is a vast institution that oversees the galaxy-spanning religion of the Imperium. The Ecclesiarchy's complex hierarchies of cardinals, missionaries, preachers, and zealous laity ensure that the prescribed prayers and invocations made and teach the masses to guard against heresy and deviancy. Used to be one of those fiery and charismatic individuals concerned with keeping a close watch on your congregation. Okay, so you get War Hymn off of that one, and then you get Toughness, Willpower. What is Willpower? Demonstrates a character's ability to withstand the horrors of war, the terrors of space, and the dreadful opponents that they are bound to encounter in their missions. Okay, cool. And then you get Lore Imperium, so that'll be like a lore skill specifically for things about the Imperium. Do you know things about that? Okay, cool. Navy Officer. That is a very fancy hat. The Imperial Navy is responsible for the fleets of void ships that assert dominance of the Imperium among the stars and fulfill other duties connected to the void and warp travel. Used to be a Navy officer and commander of a void ship hardened in numerous battles and famous for resounding victories. So you get a Navy officer bonus. You get some fellowship, you get some commerce out of this. Commerce is used to build business ventures, negotiate contracts, and form trade networks. And some demolition. And then some other such bonuses that we have here. Okay, Noble. The high nobility of the Imperium are enormously privileged and powerful elite, a breed apart from the common masses they rule. He grew to adulthood upon a spire of affluence and grandeur that towered high above the common imperial masses. You expected their obedience and lived upon the fruits of their toil, surrendered to your extended family and solemn fealty. So there is a persuasion skill as well. Okay, there's also what I'm wondering is whether fellowship leads into persuasion and coercion in the same way. See, I don't know the system well enough to actually be able to answer these questions, but hopefully by the time we're done here we will. Okay, I don't know how these all link into each other, but in theory this could be a good one for when we play the main game. This is kind of what I'm looking for. Intelligence and the ability to influence people. Perfect. Sanctioned Psyker, Biomancer. What I find very interesting is that there's a class called Sanctioned Psyker, because that definitely implies that there's going to be some people in classes that might be unsanctioned. Potentially. I don't know. Anyway. Biomancers specialize in manipulating biological energy and processes with the power of their minds. They are masters of the flesh, learning to shape and influence the physical forms of themselves, their allies, or their enemies according to their will. Okay, so again, this one isn't quite finished, so we're probably not going to go with this one, but we'll have a quick look at some of these. So, this character is a psyker, albeit quite a weak one. Interesting. Okay. Get some lore, get some carouse. What's carouse? Allows you to resist the negative effects and substances. Expands knowledge on these topics. Oh, and then the talents that you get as you go up are more powerful psychic powers. Makes sense. And then diviner. Or diviner? Anyway. Diviners seek to discern the hidden past of the galaxy and know the course of events yet to come. These abilities allow diviners to look into the twisting strands of the Imperium in search of answers they seek, and sometimes even influence the outcome of fate itself. That does sound very cool. I gotta say, that sounds very cool. This is very tempting as well for the main playthrough. So, Sanctioned Psyker, you get Divination. Okay, so gleaming information, using it to turn fortune in your favor. And then you get Psi rating, and then as you level up, you get more Psi rating. But again, it's not finished yet, so we'll leave it well alone. So, out of what's finished, I think I quite like just the normal commander. Now again, he doesn't really get any of the stuff I was looking for when we first started, but actually, thinking about it, this isn't too bad. Well, maybe we'll just have somebody who's quite good at combat. What does our homeworld give us? Strength, toughness, and agility. Okay, so it lowers our intelligence and fellowship, so maybe we'll ditch the original plan, right? We're going to be somebody who survives. We're going to be difficult to take down. What do these give us? Chance to gain critical hit against targets with bleeding effect. And gains plus 10 critical hit with axes, hammers, and las weapons. Okay. Every injury increases Death World characters' agility and willpower by 5. Every trauma counts as 3 injuries. Death World characters gain an additional deflection against flame and toxic damage and bleeding effect equal to their toughness bonus. Once per combat, when a Death World character suffers stunned, blind, or immobilized condition, ignore this condition and instead gain 20% temporary wounds to the maximum wounds, which will then go into Survival Instinct and give you that 20% dodge and armor bonus. That's kind of cool. So, on top of that, what we're giving ourselves is we're giving ourselves combined arms. So the commander and their allies deal an additional 20 plus the perception bonus times by 2% damage to enemies that are adjacent to the commander or their allies until the end of the commander's next turn. All their commander's allies also take no damage from friendly fire attacks. That's very interesting. So this is kind of like you point at something and you say kill it. Everybody just unloads all their weapons just in that rough area to all the enemies. Whether there's allies in the way doesn't matter because you're not taking any friendly fire damage, which is very, very easy to take in this game. Okay, distraction. While under the Astra Militarum, commander is under the effects of combined arms effect, their single shot and area effect attacks gain 20% dodge reduction, power reduction, and cover penetration against enemies that are adjacent to the commander or their allies. Okay, so very much it goes with the first one. So this one is everyone can attack a lot, and then this one is when you have that ability, the enemy aren't going to dodge. Drown them in shots. When you're under that effect, all their allies gain 5% rate of fire for every attack they've made since the beginning of the effect. Again, as I said, it's very much a point at something and say, I want that to die, and everyone just unloads. When they're under the combined arm effect, or arms effect, killing an enemy adjacent to their ally grants the commander additional plus 10 momentum. Momentum is a mechanic in the game, which is basically the more momentum you get unique abilities at like high levels. So if you get over 100 momentum, then you can activate this ability, which is good stuff is happening, therefore more good stuff will happen, right? Or you can have really low momentum in combat, and then you get kind of desperation moves, like a high risk, high reward move will become available to you that you didn't previously have. So it creates a bit of ebb and flow in combat. Unflinching heroism. Every time the Astra Militarum commander's ally uses a heroic act, which I think is what you get from having high momentum, the commander gains plus 5 to all their characteristics until the end of combat. Then shoulder to shoulder. While the Astra Militarum commander is adjacent to an ally, the commander deals an additional 10 plus perception bonus percentage Now I'm seeing how that's written. I think the other one I read wrong. So it's 10 plus their perception bonus, and that's a percentage of that's damage to enemies that are adjacent to the commander's allies. So I think when I read this one, what this one's actually saying is you gain 20 plus whatever your perception bonus is. So let's say it's 5. So 20 plus 5 times by 2, so it'd be like 50, and that would then give you 50% extra damage, right? I think that's the way that you're meant to read that. I was reading times 2%, so it's like adding 2% or something, and no, that doesn't make any sense. So I think, yeah, that's the way it's meant to be read. Okay, so that's who we are now. Triumph isn't there, but essentially I'm imagining these are going to be something similar to, say, at the start of Mass Effect 1, where it'll say, oh, this commander is well known for the time where he took down this group of heretics, right? And then the next one, Darkest Hour, which also isn't available, is like, yeah, but when they did it, their entire squad was killed and it was just them, right? So you can have like a backstory for you there, and I'm assuming that these will give you different bonuses. However, none of that's there right now. And now we get into our doctrines, and doctrines are basically what class you are. So, Fighter. Fighters are combatants of exceptional melee prowess, dealing high damage in close quarters combat and withstand drawn enemies' attention from less defended allies. Okay, so you get a bunch of things that help you there. Leader. This version only contains a limited selection of advancement paths for Leader for the second half of the version content. If you plan on playing this version for 10 hours plus, consider selecting another doctrine. You know what? We'll leave it be. We're not going to play 10 hours plus, but I'm definitely looking to do content that is available. And that's, I want to see the content that is most polished right now, because I think that's going to be more interesting. Adept Doctrine allows a person to use intelligence and perception to find and exploit different weaknesses in enemy defenses. See, this is sounding like what I would choose if we were choosing one for real. As in, like, if this was what we were going for a whole playthrough, this is the kind of thing that I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds good to me. And then we get to Marksman, which I think is what we're going to go for. Marksman is a master of all ranged weapons, capable of quickly getting to an advantageous position, mercilessly raining fire on enemies. Marksman is well trained in using a highly diverse range of arms, but they especially tend to blast their enemies with burst and area of effect weapons. That sounds perfect for us. So our keystone ability is Shot on the Run. The Marksman gains 2 plus the Marksman's Agi bonus divided by 2 movement points. The next attack costs 1 action point less and suffers a -10 ballistic skill penalty and does not count towards the limit of attacks per turn. I believe usually, at least at the starting level, the number of attacks per turn you get is 1. So something not counting towards it basically means you're doubling your attacks for a turn, which is pretty good, and I'm definitely not saying it's bad. But the downside of that is that you get through your ammo a lot quicker, and you may have a turn of downtime quicker than you would expect. So there is like a little bit of, yeah, you could attack 5 times in one turn, but if you've only got enough ammo for 3 shots, you're not really getting anything out of it. And then your ultimate abilities. So these are your heroic acts and your desperate measures. So this is what I was talking about for momentum. When you get high enough momentum, you can do a heroic act, and when you get a low enough momentum, you can do a desperate measure. And they're similar abilities, but obviously they change depending on what usage is being done. So, the Heroic Act. The marksman gains the ability to make a number of free attacks equal to their weapon's rate of fire, minimum 2, with the cheapest weapon's attack ability. Until the end of the turn, the first attack against a new enemy automatically deals a critical hit. Also, the marksman immediately reloads their current weapon. That's actually fantastic, yeah. So you would trigger that right as your weapon needs to be reloaded, and then just rain hell upon the enemy. Fantastic. And then you get the opposite one. So you're still able to make the same attacks. However, you also still get the critical hit. However, you immediately reload their current weapon. Yeah. And then you get to the bad bit at the end. From the next round until the end of combat, the marksman's AP is reduced by 1. So you get 1 less action point in combat until the end of combat. So this is I really need to be able to kill all these enemies, and I think that will win me the combat. So that's basically what you're doing there. Characteristics are ballistic skill, agility, perception, and strength. Skills are awareness, demolition, athletics, and Medicae. Okay, cool. So we're going to select that. Now, selecting that, we then can choose a second one, which kind of further specializes it, right? Gives you another set of abilities. However, if I was to choose... I thought there was a different one of these that was locked when I last did it. I don't understand why that is, so I'm not going to mention it too much, but there are some circumstances where if you choose one, these ones at the bottom are not available. However, I don't know why that isn't the case on this one, unless it was a bug in the previous version of the game. I did all my testing on an initial version of the game, and today there was a large patch before they released it out to the general public, so some things may be a little bit different. Apologies there, but yes. So these ones basically let you further specialize what you're doing. So we can be a marksman assassin. Assassins are masters of finding and executing high priority targets through any means necessary, capable of finding and exploiting any gaps in the enemy defenses. And it gets you a keystone ability, which is study enemies. The adept randomly... See, it does say the adept in there, which makes me think it maybe should be limited. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Randomly distributes int bonus stacks of clue marks among enemies in a 4 square radius within 10 cell range. Clues remain until the end of combat and can add insight, a characteristic that increases damage against studied enemies. If the adept hits a target with clue, it deals an additional percentage bonus plus insight damage, removes 1 stack of clue, and provides +1 insight to the adept until the end of combat. And then you get another ultimate ability. So dispatch. The assassin makes an attack against the target with the current weapon makes an attack with the current weapon against an enemy. This attack cannot miss and deals 50% additional damage. Also deals additional damage equal to 25% of the target's missing wounds. So it's kind of an execute, right? Because yeah, the more that the character is hurt, the more that you're gonna do. And then the assassin's dodge reduction, armor penetration, and parry penetration are doubled for this round. And then this is the desperate measure. What's the negative? Receives 100% more damage until the end of combat. So pretty big negative there. Oh, there you go. Prerequisites: doctrine, fighter, or adept. So there are prerequisites here that we do not fulfill. Okay. And the previous version I was playing, it was graying these out. It's not doing that anymore. But this is a beta, and they are changing it regularly, so there we go. Maybe they decided that instead of graying them out, they would do this so you can understand why it's, only on some, which probably makes a level of sense. Right. Vanguard. Vanguard is an unstoppable beacon at the front, capable of enduring incredible amounts of enemy fire and even becoming stronger after that. So, your keystone ability is Bulwark. Until the beginning of their next turn, the Vanguard deals damage deflection equal to their stacks, or gains damage deflection equal to their stacks of unyielding beacon against ranged targets. Also, the Vanguard becomes immune to push and forced movement effects until their next turn. I don't know what unyielding beacon is. Okay, that must be something that we can get. Ah, there you go. Feature, unyielding beacon. Each attack against the Vanguard increases the resolve by 1 up to a maximum of 15. All allies in a 2-cell radius gain 1/5 of that bonus. Temporary wounds applied to the Vanguard now stack, but remain stacked until the beginning of the Vanguard's turn. Okay, at the beginning of their turn, the remaining temporary wounds are reduced to the largest amount granted by 1 applied effect. If the remaining temporary wounds are less than the unyielding beacon effect counter, they become equal to the number of unyielding beacon stacks, even if they equal 0. Okay. I don't fully understand, but that's okay. Unyielding Guard. The Vanguard attacks every enemy that attacks the Vanguard's allies in a 3-cell radius around the Vanguard and always strikes back when being attacked until their next turn. So this is, you stand next to allies, the enemies shoot the allies and you shoot back. Okay. And then Desperate Measures is the same, except that you receive 30% more damage from all sources until the end of combat. And you have to be a fighter or a leader for that. So that's not us. So I guess we must be a hunter then. A hunter is a methodical killer, leaving a lane of dead bodies in their path. A hunter chooses a new target while the previous one has not even realized it's dead already. Wow, okay. So hunt down the prey. At the beginning of each combat, the hunter has 3 charges of hunt down the prey. This ability can be used any number of times per turn as long as the hunter has charges. The hunter consumes 1 charge of hunt down the prey to inflict the prey status to any target enemy, even if the enemy is out of the hunter's line of sight. Whenever the hunter kills a prey, they gain bonus until the end of combat depending on the prey enemy difficulty type, the Roman figure on the enemy's icon. If it's 1 to 2, then plus 25% of the hunter's maximum wounds as temporary wounds. Okay, so you can gain some temporary wounds. That sounds really good for us with the Death World thing that we've got going on. And then 3 to 4, 10 times the prey difficulty type, percent critical hit damage, so either 30 or 40% critical hit damage, and 2 times the prey difficulty type percent, so 6 or 8 critical hit chance until the end of combat, and then if they're 5 or if they're 5 to 7, you get both of the above, which obviously this one's going to stack a lot more on those ones, as is that. Well, actually this will be exactly the same, but yeah, this will definitely stack a lot better on those. Okay. And the bonuses stack. So if you were to kill one, and you get the bonus till the end of combat, you could then get it again. So you could get this critical hit damage one. So basically you sit at the back, you keep shooting down the enemy, and then you start stacking up your bonuses, and by the end of combat you're incredibly dangerous. Okay. What's next? Wild Hunt. The hunter simultaneously makes several attacks. The number of attacks is equal to the number of preys in combat. Those attacks are equally divided among all preys in the hunter's line of sight. Those attacks always hit and are always critical hits. Okay. Interesting. And then the desperation one. Till the end of combat, the hunter's ballistic skill, perception, and agility are reduced by 20%. So the way I'm reading this is that you definitely want to mark some prey at the beginning of combat, kill them very quickly, and then just go to town. Although ideally you want to, I guess you want to mark them right before you do your heroic act or your desperate measures, and then you can get like a bunch of bonuses to the end of combat. Interesting. And this one's marksman or adept, which is going to be us, because it's the only option we have. It's the only option we have. I say again. Expecting to select it. But it's not actually selecting. Okay, let me try this again. It is a beta, so it just might not work. I'm fairly certain you are meant to be able to choose a second one there. That actually save at all? No? Okay. Be right back. Okay, I've redone it and got the same results, so I'm going to assume that either you're meant to be able to select it and it won't let you do it right now due to some kind of bug, or there was a bug in the previous version that allowed me to select it. Either way, we're going to ignore it, and we're going to know that Hunter is our only option if we get an option to do this later, which we may or may not do. So that's what we're going to do. We probably won't get far enough in that we have to worry. And now we get to distribute our skills. So, let's figure out what we're going to do here. Now, obviously, our original plan of having high, like, fellowship and other such things, or I guess I said skills, I guess I should say our attributes, because these are our skills and then these are our attributes, and each skill has an attribute. I understand now, understand the system we're working in. But yeah, our original plan of going as a very talky, smart character is obviously out the window, because honestly, we have no ability to do any of that. So what do we want to do instead? I guess we want to be really good with guns, right? That's kind of our new thing. We want to be tough, and we want to be good with guns. So tough does allow us to get carouse, so we get expanded knowledge on negative effects and substances, which is kind of interesting. Let's put in a couple of points here. Let's go up to, well, yeah, there we go. We're only allowed to put in 2 lots of points. Let's go up to that. We probably don't need any strength. Can I lower stats? No. Okay. So we probably don't need that. Agility? What's agility? Agility only gives us demolition. Perception still seems like it would be fairly useful. Yeah, let's go for some perception, and then maybe we'll put in some toughness as well. Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Let's go for that, and then maybe we need agility. What's it say? If the character is using a melee weapon, then the dodge reduction will be equal to half their agility score. So that probably doesn't actually matter for us that much. Yeah, maybe we go more perception. Is there anything else that leads into weapons? Maybe we go some willpower. Yeah, you know what? Let's have some willpower. Let's be able to withstand the horrors of war. That sounds useful. And now we have to choose our ship. There is only one ship. The Von Valancius flagship. I'm assuming at some point there might be more than one option, given that it's an option on the menu, but maybe it's just a way that you can name your ship, and then there might be another option later to get another ship, in which case you will come to the same menu and it will then be available. I don't know. Anyway, dimensions. 1.6 kilometers in length, 0.3 kilometers, a beam at the fins, approximate mass, 6 megatons, approximate crew, 26,000 crew approximately. The Von Valancius flagship is the oldest and mightiest void ship belonging to the Von Valancius dynasty. Every system aboard this frigate has been tried and tested in innumerable engagements. Its weapons and turrets deliver hard-hitting volleys with pinpoint accuracy. Its plasma drives are rugged yet reliable in extreme conditions. The flagship's size and maneuverability are perfect for pursuing smaller, faster raiders and for hunting the countless priests, xenos, and heretics in the Koronus Expanse. Numerous Von Valancius rogue traders have acknowledged the exceptional performance of this vessel, and with a few minor updates, the flagship has continued faithfully to serve the Von Valancius dynasty. Let's give it a random name. Victim Erebus. Let's give it a different random name. Unforgiven. The Daring Destiny. Destiny Hunter. Mercy from Heaven. Charbois. Okay, and I think we've gone through most of it. Haven of Seekers. Apex Predator. Atonement of the Abyss. Mercy from Heavens. I was going to say these are all a bit over the top, but then I remembered it is in 40k, so, you know, these are probably, you know, not that bad. I do like First Created. It's kind of a terrible name, but given it is our first ship and we got it randomly, we're going to call this one First Created. There we have it. There's our character. We do need to name them. You shall be called... You shall be called... I have absolutely no idea. You shall be called... Calder. Yeah. That's as far as my brain went. I'll try and think of something better when we do this on the main playthrough when the game comes out. But until then, this is our character. We're all set up and ready to go. And I will hopefully see you for the first episode of the series, which should go up probably right after this video. So, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you there. Goodbye.